The NBA draft is always an exciting time of the year, filled with the promise of better tomorrows for the league's worst teams. But it's also a stressful time for team executives, whose draft night decisions could shape their organization's fortunes for a generation and make or break their own career. And if there's a make or break player in an otherwise underwhelming 2020 NBA draft, it's clearly LaMelo Ball, who you're just as likely to be fired for believing in as you are for passing on him. Most years, Ball wouldn't even be in contention for the #1 overall pick. But after a couple draft classes that produced franchise changers like Luka Doncic, Zion Williamson, and Ja Morant, among other future stars, the 2020 class is looking more like the type that produces
Anthony Bennett of Toronto, Canada, and the University of Nevada.
Georgia swingman Anthony Edwards might be the biggest threat to LaMelo's bid for #1 overall. And with all due respect, let's just say Edwards is far from a perfect prospect.
The only questions about Edwards are his efficiency, his decision-making, shot selection, and whether he's going to be an engaged defender.
Sure, the draft is always somewhat of a crapshoot, but between Ball, Edwards, and James Wiseman, a physically gifted big man with NBA size but perhaps not NBA skills, and one that played just 3 college games, there are far more questions at the top this year than scouts would normally want this close to the draft. Denny Avdia, Onyeka Okongwu, and Obi Toppin, to name just a few more, are all intriguing players, but none are can't-miss prospects, which is what makes LaMelo's ceiling so tempting. As a 6'7" point guard with a tight handle and highlight reel court vision, Ball does offer some alluring potential in a positionless basketball world.
There are no other 18-year-olds on the planet who can handle the ball and facilitate like LaMelo Ball can.
What makes projecting his draft stock and his future so tough, though, is that while he's by far the most well-known 2020 prospect, his body of work is also the most mysterious. Everyone knows by now that LaMelo is the youngest of LeVar Ball's 3 basketball-playing sons. And thanks to oldest brother Lonzo's actual abilities and LeVar's marketing madness, LaMelo has been a household name in hoop homes since he was 15. He also committed to UCLA when he was just 13. But for all that fame, there's still a very small sample size of work on which to judge LaMelo's NBA potential. Yes, he scored 92 points in a high school game. And yeah, he became the youngest American pro baller ever when his dad pulled him out of Chino Hills High School, hired an agent, which ended his college eligibility, and sent him and middle brother LiAngelo to play pro in Lithuania.
And you think the Lithuanian league is good training to play in the NBA?
Absolutely, I love the Lithuanian league. All white teammates. Nobody above 140 pounds.
Oh, man.
Vitamin deficiencies. Soft teeth. All layups. No dunks. Perfect training for the NBA. I love it. Every night, the crowd of 61 people just goes wild, cheering and waving wooden spoons in the air.
But before you draw any parallels to a prodigy like Doncic, remember, Luka was the MVP of the second best league in the world at 19 years old. LaMelo's is the big baller brand version of that story, where after just 2 high school seasons, Ball played just 8 games for a Lithuanian team that pulled out of the Baltic Basketball League in order to play big baller brand sponsored exhibition games. LaMelo's production in those 8 contests, 6.5 points and 2.4 assists on 26.8% shooting in less than 13 minutes per game.
Never lost.
Within a few months, LeVar took his balls and went home, citing injuries and poor coaching. And next thing we knew, LaMelo was playing in the sham that was LeVar's Junior Basketball Association. Now, by this point in the story, you might be thinking the real sham is that LaMelo, who also isn't exactly known as an attentive defensive player, is a top NBA draft prospect at all. Heck, according to ESPN draft analyst Mike Schmitz, LaMelo arrived in Australia last year without knowing how to run a 3-man weave drill. But herein lies the complicated story of the youngest Ball brother. LaMelo's last and most stable pre-NBA stock was with the Illawarra Hawks in Australia's National Basketball League. And while viewers right now might assume the 19-year-old is all hype and no substance, the results down under suggest just the opposite is true. Ball may have only played 12 games in Australia, but during that time, he looked like a more polished, maturing pro that has grown wise beyond his years.
Ball with the steal, in the open court, LaMelo Ball lays it up on the left.
LaMelo averaged 17 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 6.8 assists for Illawarra, finishing his time in Australia with back-to-back triple-doubles. He also shined as a teammate, as Illawarra head coach Matt Flynn said in a recent profile of Ball. Cast aside whatever preordained judgments you had about LaMelo the person, and don't hold his fame against him. This is a teenager who's had to navigate the hectic, globe-trotting life of a professional athlete, seemingly on the whims of his father, and he's managed to become a better player in the process. In fact, according to that aforementioned ESPN profile, head coach Flynn was concerned Ball was working too hard on his craft, between his team responsibilities and his private training with trainer-manager Jermaine Jackson. Having said that, it is fair to question how LaMelo will deal with the NBA pressures of winning, because Chino Hills, the LeVar run circus in Lithuania, and whatever the hell the JBA was, were about showcasing the Ball name, not working towards some common team goal. And in Australia, LaMelo played for a Hawks team that went 5-23. As a scrutinized NBA prospect, he's never been in a situation where he's had to deliver in the only currency NBA teams are judged upon: wins. What we do know is that LaMelo's a maturing point guard, big enough to see over the defense, and creative enough to make things happen with the ball in his hands. The difference between whether he can be a franchise-changing star or not may come down to whether his shooting efficiency eventually catches up to his confidence. It's one thing to have the swagger of a long-range assassin who can pull up from half court. A swagger Ball definitely carries himself with. But actually being able to knock those shots down and becoming a legitimate three-point threat when you already have LaMelo's playmaking ability, that's the difference between transcendent offensive talent and empty-calorie chucker. And it's concerning that LaMelo shot under 30% from deep as a professional in both Lithuania and Australia. On the other end, who knows, in the right system, under the right guidance, perhaps some team out there could even coax the defensive potential that lies within a perimeter player this long. Plus, you know, for starless, small market teams especially, looking at you with the third pick, Charlotte, the allure of LaMelo's fame and his ability to put asses in seats, whenever we can safely get back into arenas, could be a real factor behind the scene. And if there's one thing teams should feel confident won't intimidate LaMelo Ball, it's the spotlight. So whether it's the Timberwolves adding Ball to the offensively gifted, defensively incapable duo of Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, the Warriors drafting him to use as a trade chip in their hunt for another star, or the Hornets, Bulls, Cavs, or some other team swinging for the fences to trade up for his upside, here's what you can take to the bank. When his name's called on draft night, no one will be quite sure what they just acquired in LaMelo Ball. And at some point, somewhere down the line, someone's probably losing their job because of it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.